are the best Battlegrounds champions of all time? Who are the GOATs? Who are the ones who will forever be remembered as the best there have ever been? Because nothing is better than dedicating a good 3 or 4 hours of your time to writing and ordering these champions and then putting your opinion on the internet. I already know I'm going to get murdered. I already know I'm going to get slated. I already know I can feel those thumbs typing aggressively. Deal with it! If your favourite champion does not feature on this list, then I'm very not sorry, okay? I understand that this is a highly debated topic, and I will probably get some of them wrong, okay? I am only a man. I am not a god. I wish I were a god. Sometimes I think I am a god. But I'm not a god. It's highly unfortunate. Some of these placings are going to cause controversy. So let's try and keep the discourse civil, shall we, while we start our obligatory thermonuclear war in the comment section over every single tier list that has ever existed in the MCOC community. Okay, on to another disclaimer for this video, quite an important one. The purposes of this video is not to tell you who the best Battlegrounds champions are in the game right now. It is also not to tell you who the best Battlegrounds champions are in the game for this current meta. That's certainly not the case. What we're trying to do is tell you who the GOATs are. Some of these champions will not feature in your Battlegrounds deck today. Some of them are not even particularly good anymore. Just how some people consider Ayrton Senna to be one of the greatest of all time in Formula 1, even though he's dead. That's a deranged example. You get the point though. Similarly, it means that some very, very powerful champions who only recently been added to the game will not be on this list. For example, Deathless Thanos. He will not feature on this list.
Why?
Because I cannot reasonably say that he has had the same influence over Battlegrounds as a game mode as basically every other champion on this list. I know he's stupidly powerful. I know he's probably the best champion in the game currently. But he's not on the list. I just can't reasonably say that, okay? Deal with it! Deathless Thanos is like Andrea Kimi Antonelli. You don't know who that is because you're an MCOC playing incel who lives in your mother's basement. But to those who don't know, he's Mercedes' new F1 rookie driver and he's younger than me. He's the first F1 driver who is younger than me and I now feel inadequate. How's that possible? I used to think that I was good at karting. This man's an F1 driver for Mercedes. They think he's the next Hamilton, but he's not. He's not the GOAT yet. He might be the next Hamilton, but he's not yet. That proves my point. Andrea Kimi Antonelli is like Deathless Thanos. He's killing everyone in the 51,000 points, but he's not the GOAT. You get it? Are you sure that you get it? Alright, now that bullshit's out of the way, if you do get it, then welcome to the video. If you don't get it, then piss off. It doesn't matter. Anyway, before we get into this, I need to start off with an honourable mention. Okay, America Chavez does not even make it onto this list. That is how stacked the rest of this list is, right? We are dealing with the best of the best. So why is America Chavez here and not on the list if she's so incredible? Well, Chavez is a very peculiar champion, alright? She's never been the best option for anything, with the rare exception of Serpent and maybe Maestro. But with purpose-built options to both of those champions coming out and more are on the way, now she's just a very reliable option for those two fights. And she's a very reliable option for everything else as well. America Chavez is a cockroach. Yeah, she's like a cockroach. You know those things that just never die? Like you can nuke them and then they just like, bing, and they just come back up again. That's what America Chavez is. She's a magical floating cockroach with hair. That's a very weird description, but that's what she is. There has not been a meta in recent memory where she has not been useful, right? Even Safeguard, she was one of the safest options for Serpent, and you kind of need her in your deck. This Winter Soldier won't die, by the way. Can you just fall over? Christ, die. Jesus. The manners. Anyway, you can't get rid of her. She will feature in everybody's decks in some way, shape or form to deal with Serpent, Maestro, and just generic damage-dealing matchups. Like, she was tuned up, and she was great. She was added as a 7-star, and now she's phenomenal. She just pops off. Even with one spare buff on the opponent, her damage goes through the ceiling. On top of the damage she gets from all of her zones, not negative zones, what are they called? Dimensions. She just goes absolutely nuts. You can see, Captain Marvel, we're going to have class advantage, but she's not going to have any buffs. Winter Soldier didn't have any buffs, and he went down in 1 minute 13, which, okay, it's not brilliant for a 7-star rank 3, but you're about to see what happens when everything lines up and you get those crits. You ready? Look at this SP2. 1, 2, into the SP2. Good night, Captain Marvel. 1% health. She goes down. How fast was that? 36 seconds. That should be illegal. A champion with such ease of use and range as America Chavez should not be able to hit that hard, and yet here we are. Couple that with her insane utility, not only does she pop off the moment the opponent gets a single buff, she also has the power to reverse the opponent's ability power rate, which you're going to see against the Serpent here, and she can heal. So if I get smacked when I play like a scrub, which I inevitably will, if I have my blue dimension up when I throw my SP2, I can heal! And that healing is enormous, right? It's absolutely huge. It can save you around. You can get smacked, heal back up to 100%. You can take some of Maestro's energy radiation. It doesn't matter. You can heal that back. You might not, but you can, and that's what's scary. That's what's really scary about this character. There, you can see I'm using the SP1 decks. I made a video on how to do that, so definitely go check that out. And you can see that Serpent's ability power rate is getting reversed. That's ridiculous. And let's not forget, by the way, that you can put her on defense. Like, isn't that insane? You can do all this, and then you can just stick her on defense. She's not brilliant, but she has defensive potential. Okay? That's a technical term that I made up. Or maybe didn't, I can't remember. Doesn't matter. Anyway, her AI throws heavies left, right, and centre, even though you don't want it to. She can throw unblockable SP2s and just end your life, right? She's not a brilliant defender, but you can put her on defense and it's better than nothing. And is she a better defender than other nukes on this list? Yeah. Yes, she is. And yet she isn't on this list. That speaks to the absolutely enormous power of who we have coming up. But Serpent's going to go down here. It's going to be just over 48,000 points. But the score doesn't really matter. I'm not the best Serpent fighter in the game. There are players who could get that over 50,000 points. But the point is, she's never quite the best option for anything. But she's absolutely never the worst. So no, she's not on this list. But if there weren't absolutely stud options later on, she absolutely would be. Definitely an honourable mention. I had to put her in the video. Okay, let's move on to number 10. And coming in at number 10 is Archangel. So if you haven't got a handle on the standard of this video just yet, yeah, Archangel's 10th. That's crazy. The reason he isn't higher up on this list is because of the two moods that Archangel has. He's a very simple creature. He has super duper uber powerful God mode OP broken and mid mode, right? If it can be bled and poisoned, it dies. Simple as that. This man was either insta-ban or insta-draft for season after season after season after season since Battlegrounds' conception. He was the Battlegrounds' prodigal son, right? He was relevant from late 22 when Battlegrounds first came out all the way to when Bullseye came out last year, and he remained one of the best options despite having been released in 2017. This guy is ridiculous. Every iconic defender in this game has their iconic counters, and Archangel features on too many of those lists to count. Nick Fury, Rintra, Gallon, Doctor Doom, all just off the top of my head as I desperately tried to wing this audio. This man was the figurehead of Battlegrounds for years. But if he's that broken, then what's wrong with being mid every now and then?
What aren't you telling us, Matty?
Well, the reason that he isn't number 1 on this list, despite being so broken, is because I haven't told you quite how mid mode actually is. As I said earlier, if he can be bled and poisoned, it dies. If it can't be bled or poisoned, you die. Or more accurately, you lose the round horrendously. He turns into an potato the moment he can't get his neurotoxins on the opponent. And it's unfortunate that he has this sort of switch on, switch off sort of kit, but I suppose that's the only way that a champion like this could be fair. In BGs, if your opponent had Archangel, and none of your opponents were bleed or poison immune, you might as well have just quit out in 2022 and 2023. Such was his power. Just resign. Just leave. There's no point. There is no hope. He will melt it in 30 seconds. It's GG's. But look at the other champions on this list. They're all, in some cases, just as powerful as, well, as you'll see. But they don't have the same off-switch sort of mentality. Like, you can't just turn off a lot of other champions on this list. Yes, they have their good matchups. Yes, they have their bad matchups. But none of them are as vulnerable to counters as Archangel. And that is the sole reason he is not higher up on this list. He also faces some troubles defensively, obvious. He's not a defender. He's not going to be scaring anybody as a dual threat. But the main reason he's so far down is just because of the evolution of the defenders in MCOC. Bleed and Poison are two exceptionally common immunities, and literally I will go entire Battleground sessions without facing a single defender that Archangel can reasonably take. The only one I can think of is Bullseye, and when he's up against the 7-star Pierce stat focus, this lad's just going to falter, which is slightly unfortunate, and you can see me getting absolutely pounded in the block here. And if you were to do that against an opponent in Battlegrounds, with the way the point scoring system works nowadays, you would just lose. You would just lose. I'm sorry. That's it. That's the reality. And hey, deal with it. So Archangel comes in at number 10. He's absolutely insane, but can get turned off and turned into a vegetable at a moment's notice. That's highly unfortunate. Let's close off this fight. You can see just how consistent he is. There are some issues with RNG, but on the whole, he's bloody dangerous. But let's whip it on to number 9. And coming in at number 9, the Flaming Man, the hottest creature in the history of the planet.
Apart from me, obviously.
It is, of course, Human Torch. How in the name of Reed Richards is he not number 1? This is how we're going to know who's the old players of Battlegrounds and who are the new players. Who remembers Human Torch dominance? I was worried that Human Torch dominance would bore fans. This man was beyond broken. He was the first science champion to say fuck you to class disadvantage. You saw this man taking Korg. He was so broken. And it's funny, right? Because when he was first released, the community thought he was mid. Thanks to the good work of Legacy, this man was brought into the limelight and we saw him for what he was, which was an absolute monster. This man is beyond ridiculous when he gets going, and he doesn't even need to be a Mystic champion. He doesn't even need to be a champion that focuses on energy damage, because you get those 7 Incinerates, you get those Nova Flames up, you get those Power Stings up, and it's GG's. He doesn't need the debuffs. He can just swap over to a passive damage source, and nobody saw how insane that was going to be. What, the balancing team missed that one? A science champion that can rely on passives. He was completely and utterly dominant in his heyday. If you did not ban him, you better make damn sure that you draft him. Otherwise, you are at a serious disadvantage. He was the hard counter to one of the hardest defenders in the game at the time, Mephisto, and either Mephisto cocked you or you cocked Mephisto with Human Torch in less than 20 seconds. That was the way it went. People would go around in Battlegrounds banning Human Torch for the sole purpose of placing Mephisto. That was how ridiculous Human Torch was. Nobody was taking this man to 6-star rank 3 or 6-star rank 4 as their first 6-star rank 3 or 6-star rank 4, because what's the difference? You know, what is the difference? You know, that's the difference between taking a Mystic Champion in 19 seconds or taking a Mystic Champion in 17 seconds. It just doesn't matter at that point. That's how utterly ridiculous he was. Now look, he's not a defender, but I'm going to showcase something here called a Torch Trap, where you stick your opponent with all Mystic Champions or all Energy Champions, and I'm just going to stand here. I'm just going to let Juggernaut hit me, and there is no way for him to win that fight. The Nova Flames stack up, the temperature stacks up. This is the sole reason, by the way, Apple is a $1 trillion company. Because people keep having to buy new iPhones every time they chuck their phone out the window, having been torch trapped. Apple is built on rage and pain and suffering, and it's all Human Torch's fault. Right? Look at this. I'm just stuck in a corner taking it. Look at the damage he's taking. Right? This is what's wrong with the world. This is why we live in a dystopian future, with Apple watching everything we do. How fast was that? 33 seconds. That was half the time that Archangel took to do it, and he was actually fighting. Such was the power of Human Torch against Mystic Champions and against Energy Champions, and even then, with his ability to swap to passive damage output, he could just bypass everybody else. It was beyond insane, and yet he's only number 9. Oh yeah, get ready for the 7-star editions, get ready for the dual threats. It gets properly insane. Let's roll it on to number 8. And coming in at number 8 is Cosmic Ghost Rider. Would it really be a Battlegrounds tier list video without Cosmic Ghost Rider?
No, because that would be a crime.
Like, what is there to say about CGR? Because I'm probably going to be here a while. I mean, you know how he works. You throw a heavy, then you throw a light ending combo, then a medium ending combo, then you throw your SP2 and launch your opponent into the depths of hell, and then you win the game. That is about it. He is the GOAT of damage. And to be fair, if I were a flaming skull inside a fishbowl, I would want to knock everybody out too. And of course, since the conception of Battlegrounds, this lad's been absolutely everywhere. But there have been a few seasons where we wouldn't see CGR. And of course, he's not a dual threat. But does that really matter? Because this character breaks basically every record known to man, apart from Crossbones. Yes, I finally did get that record. And it pisses me off, because I uploaded the first video and said it was a world record. Then some cheeky bastard pointed out that it wasn't a world record. So then I went and uploaded a faster time, which was a world record. And now the first video, which isn't even a world record, is nabbing all the views off the actual world record. Pisses me off, that. Anyway, CGR breaks most of the world records in the game, apart from the aliens who play Hela. And there was a moment when he wasn't quite at the top of the game. So what happened? Barrow Man, the cheeky bastard, released this video, where he cooked everyone, including your mother, and everybody immediately took him to rank 5 and ascended him. 16,000 rank 5 CGRs that instant. And sent 99% of Battlegrounds defenders into the depths of hell. He is one of the few remaining 6-stars that can hold his own up against the 7-star Incursion. If you can play CGR, then you are set for life. And of course he has the same problem as the other two champions previously on this list, but if you're this insane, then what's the problem with not being a defender? By the way, he is the last champion on this list who is not a defender in some way, shape or form. Apart from the next one. Let's get into number 7. And you can see who we have at number 7. Yes, I have decided that we are living in the upside down, where the lean, mean, meme machine is better than CGR. Ha 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 ha.
I actually saw this one coming a while back. You know, back in 2022, when this guy actually got buffed, I was on a long holiday after my GCSEs. Did I spend the bluest summer of my life partying with beautiful girls? No. I spent the entire holiday messing around with a newly buffed version of Juggernaut, and I saw potential. Because if you make a champion permanently unstoppable, it's guaranteed to lead to chaos.
And now look! Juggernaut has matured into a fully grown psychopath, and there is nothing between him and world domination. This man uses his unstoppable to cook Korg, Maestro, Onslaught, Nick Fury, Enchantress, Sasquatch, Atuma, Bishop, cooked! And so many others. Who the fuck made this guy a 7-star? They need a raise. They need a serious raise. I want that man to be paid 6 figures. Fuck that, 7 figures. I want 7 figures for the man who made this man a 7-star. He would probably still be on this list even if he wasn't a 7-star. But as a 7-star, he gets sent into the 4th dimension. What were they smoking? I need some of that. Whatever they were smoking, it must be good. Give me some of that. Seriously, this is why he's higher than the previous champions on this list. Not only is he the easiest to use and the safest with his constant unstoppable, and yes, he is completely shut off when he has a single non-damaging debuff. And yes, there have been several metas specifically designed to shut only him off. But that should just speak to his insanity even further. Like, Kabam had to deliberately design metas where he couldn't take every single fight in less than 10 seconds. He's an absolute force of nature, and he absolutely deserves to be higher on this list than those previously, because he will continue to be a force of nature in the future. He's a 7-star. Whose bright idea was that? If I got him as a 7-star, tomorrow I would rank for him and wild horses could not keep me away. Let's whip it forward to number 6. Oh, bloody hell, he had to be on the list, didn't he? The war criminal has arrived! The single worst thing to ever exist is here, and he is number 6 on the list. You don't like it? Deal with it. We've only had the Serpent for less than a year. In fact, hang on. It's coming up to his birthday. How are we going to celebrate the birthday of the terrorist of MCOC? Should we buy him a cake? Should we light some candles? Or should we release yet another purpose-built Mystic Champion designed solely to screw him over? Yeah, I think that second option sounds pretty strong to me. And look, believe me, I would love to put the terrorist higher on this list, because I do genuinely believe he's the biggest war crime to ever be committed in a mobile video game. But I can't. I have to give credit to the top 5 of this list. You haven't even seen him yet. When you get there, you'll understand. We've only had him for less than a year. But anyway, let's talk about him. So, the terrorist. He's the only champion on this list who's here because he's purely a defender. He was built to piss people off, ruin their day, and make them want to end their own lives. And he does all three of these things very, very well. Legacy, get this, even made a petition on change.org to have the Serpent tuned down and triggered a thermonuclear war in the MCOC community. Absolute insanity, and I love it! The number of things in this guy's kit that exist purely to piss people off is more than any other champion ever released before Serpent combined. Immortality, resist up, unblockable, undexable, pierce, fury, power gain, regeneration, inexorable, and just a bloody enormous health pool. Like, what am I supposed to do? What are you supposed to do against that? Like, even the hard counters, like, I'm not a particularly good Battlegrounds player, but I flirt with the Celestial ranks, and I end up somewhere in Mysterium. That tends to be what happens to me. And people will take in Chavez, and the Wolf, and White Tiger, and they'll just get screwed. Like, sometimes someone will come out with something decent, but the majority of the time, I'll put Serpent down, and it will probably be fine. Because it's Serpent, because he's a war crime, and because adding Serpent to the game was actually an act of terrorism. We end up with screenshots like these. Look at this pig. I don't even know whose account this was, but some whale took 3 7-stars to rank 4 very early on in this year, and they were Serpent, Onslaught, and Bullseye. Now, okay, I know I'm probably wrong to equate these two things, but look. Remember when the US invaded the Middle East because they thought that there were weapons of mass destruction over there to sow the seeds of democracy, and that didn't end up exactly how they thought it would? Well, this guy has weapons of mass destruction, 3 of them, to be precise. And look at this, I put up a poll on my channel asking for the appropriate punishment for rank 4 Serpent, and 63% of people voted for prison. So the people have spoken, and the course of action is clear.
Invade him for the sake of democracy.
So while the US government spends $2.4 trillion removing that man's soul from the world, let's talk a little bit more about Serpent. Obviously, he's busted, and he's the only champion on this list who is purely a defender. And look, he will be higher up in the future. We've never seen anything like him before, and he has to be on this list, but wait until you see the top 5, because I can't reasonably say that he's had the same enormous influence on Battlegrounds as a game mode as the top 5. Because remember, we're dealing with 200 plus champions here. There are a lot of champions that have done a lot for the game, and Serpent will be one of those champs. If I were to make this at the end of 2025, he would almost certainly be in the top 3, but right now he's number 6. And look, this isn't necessarily applying to Battlegrounds here, but I'm showcasing some offensive footage of the Serpent, and it's not like he doesn't have his uses offensively. This is something I said very early on in this channel when I made some more Serpent footage in like Alliance War and stuff. There are 2 sacred rules when playing Serpent. It's not even like he's complicated. He's really easy to maximize, and when he gets going, he hits like a freight train. And look, this is a Battlegrounds focused video, so I'm going to keep this short, just as long as he kills X-Starwood, I'll shut up. But he's really easy to play, and he does genuinely have some matchups in actual BG content. Like, seriously, that's a thing. People can do this. If you see, for example, Red Skull, or Future Ant-Man, or, I don't know, someone with armor ups, Nimrod, you could legitimately take the Serpent and be fine. Why is that allowed? Why is that a thing? Like, as long as the opponent has armor ups, he gains this insane boost that just allows him to take fights with a reasonably competitive score. If you are going to create a defender that ought to be banned by the Geneva Convention, then he should not be able to put out these sorts of numbers offensively. And I know that he's long form oriented, but that's okay. Like, we can excuse that. The Serpent has had so much application just in long form and end game content, specifically Everest and stuff, that his role in the game is undeniable. And even as Kabam introduce more purpose-built counters like Isofield and Spiral, he will continue to terrorize the game. Like, I said it once, I said it again. We have never seen anything like him, and I really hope we never do again. But yeah, he's number 6 on this list. We're closing out the fight. It should end any second now, and we can whip it forward to number 5. So coming at number 4 is Titania. So, what can I say about Titania? I forgot. She is literally the sibling of Battlegrounds, released in literally the same update as Battlegrounds in September of 2022, and she wasn't initially appreciated.
Until she was.
People basically worked out that the power of her SP3 rotation was so enormous when paired with the limitless utility of her Haymaker, she literally became, quote, stronger than Torch, as her buff immunity spelt doom for literally every single Mystic champion in the game. Yes, this was at the time when Human Torch was burning down everybody to the ground. Yeah, and Titania came in and was like, hold my beer.
How about we play a game? How about we play Let's Try to Stop Titania? You can't.
And that's what leaves her at number 5. It is so difficult to stop Titania and her rotation dead. Like, there are only a handful of champions that can straight up prevent her from doing her damage loop. She's like... Titania is like that guy who shows up to school wearing high heels because he wants to be different. She's not only a brilliant science champion, but she is renowned for being able to step outside of her role in the game as a science champion and just exist as a brilliant champion in all circumstances. Now look, as an owner of a 7-star rank 3 version of Atuma, I can pretty safely say, from an awful lot of experience of getting nuked in Battlegrounds multiple times, that Titania is one of the best counters to Atuma. She also takes Korg, Kingpin, and even Killmonger if you know what you're doing. I mean, I for one just get assaulted whenever I even think about trying that, but a skilled Titania player will be able to take every single one of those in 48k plus. The moment she applies a debuff, she gains the fury that she needs to access her damage, so unless you turn off her ability to place the debuff, then she's nearly completely unstoppable. And once you get that indestructible up, it doesn't matter. Skilled Titania players will use her Haymaker to tank SP3s, turn off damage from Atuma, Korg, Killmonger, or instant damage from nodes. And it's not even like she's not a defender. That's the craziest thing. She has the highest female health pool in the entire game. Her Haymaker disrupts the flow of the fight so much that she is actually a bit of a stall. Combine that with the sorry excuse for a class that is skill champions nowadays, and she's a lot better than nothing. So why is she higher on this list than the lean, mean meme machine? Why is Tits higher than Jugs? I need to know. If their primary function is both to hit things, then why is she ahead? Well, she's just an awful lot harder to kill. She's not locked as a 6-star, so she gets ahead of a lot of the earlier options on this list. And unlike Juggernaut, she can't just be turned off by non-damaging debuffs. And she can't even be turned off by the things that should turn off science champions. She's very similar to Chavez, in that she's a cockroach, but she's even scarier. She's a cockroach, but with teeth.
That's a rather disturbing image. I'm sorry. Let's move it on to number 4 before I embarrass myself.
Oh my god. I have been working on this video for far, far too long. Please don't tell my mother. Anyway, coming in at number 4 is Onslaught. Yes, this man burst onto the scene, took the mutant class by the scruff of the neck and said,
Oi, lads. I'm the captain now.
He legitimately came into the game in December of 2023 and then was immediately considered the best mutant champion in the entire game. He was leaked as a big scary defender, and he was sold as a big scary defender, and guess what? He was a big scary defender. But let's not forget that this lad is absolutely busted offensively, so I'm going to showcase some footage of him in the Necropolis where we get to see some of the ridiculous things that he's capable of offensively. He does, rather deceptively, have a bit of a skill cap, but when you can find openings to pause your Neuroshocks and your degens for a long time, it does require a bit of skill, but if you're good with Onslaught, you can be completely unstoppable. And that's not mentioning his application to fights like Bullseye, Atuma, or Korg. Bullseye came into the game, and everybody had a hissy fit, and then we realised the value of Onslaught, and everybody bought those deals. Kabam made enough money to buy Sweden from the pre-release bundles. If you can parry, and that debuff gets purified, this lad just gets enormous, infinite DOT. Insanity. And that's not even talking about him as a defender, because he is a defender. As a defender, you can't parry him. If you do, you A, won't land a stun, and B, you'll lose all contact to the willpower mastery. Fun! And you can't avoid the Neuroshock damage, which, by the way, no champion in the game is immune to. Only 3 champions. At the time, it was none. Only 3 champions now have hard and fast counters to Onslaught's Neuroshock application. They are Ironheart, Jack-O-Lantern, and now Bastion, the latest champion to be added to MCOC. He's not even out yet. That's coming later this month. And yeah, as expected, Kabam had to release counters to get this guy under control. Not only that, but his SP2 and SP1 are really, really hard to dex and even harder to punish. And if you screw up, it's lights out for you. Plus, his AI, I swear to God, is intelligent. Kabam have beaten Samsung, Nvidia, Google, Tesla, anyone to the punch on artificial general intelligence, and it's called Onslaught's AI, and it hates you. It is programmed to do everything in its power to lose you that round. And all the while, this defensive bullshit is going on. You can see against Red Goblin there, he didn't want to throw a special and I lost all my degens. It doesn't matter. I can still solo this Necropolis fight with ease while playing like a complete scrub. And yeah, okay. Onslaught be scary. It's hardly surprising he's number 4 on this list, and in time, he might even climb even higher. You know, he's become a household name across the contest, and it's hard to think of a Battlegrounds meta where he won't be useful. Luckily, as a defender, he can be countered by being skillful and not bringing a metal champion. I mean, that doesn't excuse him from being a complete bastard, but at least he doesn't rip the soul from your body like Serpent does. So we're going to sit through the rest of this Red Goblin match, and now we've got the rest of the degens back online. I know it looks like we're dealing an awful lot of damage, but let me tell you, if the opponent purifies your parry stuns, then this level of damage output isn't even unreasonable to achieve in Battlegrounds. That is how ridiculous Onslaught is against champs like Korg, Atuma. If there's a meta where there's some sort of tenacity going on, this man just pops off and down goes Red Goblin. What a champion. There is a very, very good reason Onslaught is regularly considered to be top 3 best champions in the entire game by any sort of metric. He is absolutely busted, but for now, let's look into the top 3 of the GOATs of Battlegrounds. Let's go to number 3. The man, the myth, the dick is here. Dick Fury. Now we get into the classics. Now we get into the absolute classics of Battlegrounds. Like, I'm talking Jaguar D-type, but Battlegrounds. That's a weird example. It doesn't matter. Anyway, Nick Fury comes in at number 3. What can I say about Nick Fury? I made notes. Hang on. I made notes on all these guys because I am a professional. What did I say? Yes. Who thought it was a good idea to have a defender where you can kill a guy and does he regen? Does he go indestructible or immortal?
No. He just gets back up again? Whose bright idea was that?
Like, just for a second, imagine with me here. How on God's green earth is a second life fair? Not only that, not only do they inadvertently give him a health pool that would put Sasquatch to shame because you essentially have to kill him twice, he also goes stun immune, gains a massive fury, and throughout the fight has a chance to throw off an unblockable and undexable SP1 just to make your day worse. If you get clipped and he throws a light ending combo, then that's lights out unless you're bleed immune. But the most egregious part of his kit is really just a stalling factor. Apart from maybe Juggernaut, it's damn near impossible to do Nick Fury quickly. And look, okay, I know a few of you are going to say, but I nuke Nick Fury all the time. Yet now, in 2025, he was released in 2019. Think about that for a moment. You do all the hard work. Imagine if they released a 7-star version of Nick Fury now. Picture that. You do all the hard work. You get him to 0. And then he's right back up to 100 again. And yeah, okay, he degens down to 30. But that 30 is harder than the rest of the fight combined. And Kabam have tried to nerf this guy over and over and over and over again by introducing new counters. And he just keeps rearing his ugly head again. Like, I count Danny Moonstar, by the way, who's the queen of inconsistency, Toad, and Deadpool X-Force, all with utility geared towards turning off his second life. Oh, and Penny Parker. But he keeps coming back. He's starting to go out of fashion now, with the majority of top-tier BG decks running completely 7-star based rosters. But your best option against Nick Fury, if you do face him, is just to nuke him down and pray that you do it faster than your opponent instead of looking for specific counters. But that's just on defense. What I'm showing on screen now, or what I should have just shown on screen now, I'll be honest, I can't see what's currently playing, but Nick Fury is without a doubt a dual threat. Because Battlegrounds players are cheeky bastards, I'll showcase this in a second, they use his second life to cheat. And you see when you end the fight, there may be scenarios where you unavoidably have to take damage. These defenders exist. These defenders include Electro, Mephisto, Bullseye, and Nick Fury handles these very well. He's one of the few champions who can handle all three of them without a problem. He may be a bit slow, but if you run deep wounds, you aren't going to have any complaints about the damage, and you're just about to end the fight. You take a pounding, regenerate all the way to 100%, and then finish the fight before you degenerate. Cheeky bastards! Guaranteed full yellow bar finish, even more important under the current scoring system. So Dick Fury, up until very recently, was a staple of every single Battlegrounds deck for every single Battlegrounds season. There has not been a season in Battlegrounds where he has not been an absolutely fantastic stalling defender. Even the nukiest of the nuke seasons, he has been standout because he just has to slow you down that little bit. And in the harder metas, like Crit Me With Your Best Shot or Safeguard, he just goes through the roof. He will forever be a part of my deck until I literally cannot have him in there anymore. He is certainly in there now. And, like, I haven't even mentioned the chip damage you take. If you're trying to bait a heavy while he's in his second life, that Fury is enormous. I haven't mentioned how Deadpool X-Force was buffed to take him, even though that buff came out at the end of 2024, 5 years after his release. He was still relevant, and you can see 100% finish against a Bullseye. And I know that was a practice fight, but the execution would have been exactly the same in Battlegrounds. And yeah, Dick Fury, how could he not be on the podium? He is Battlegrounds. Insanity from this lad. On defense, on offense, you love to see it, and he will always be remembered as one of the all-time greats. But let's move it on to number 2. So, coming in at number 2, a champion who I initially thought was not actually very good.
Please don't throw me in jail.
FBI, open up!
I just didn't see it coming, alright?
It was an oversight on my part. I thought he was too simple. But that turned out to be anything but true. I made notes, again, of everything he has going for him because I am a professional. And yeah, Hulkling, when he first came out, lived a little bit in the shadow of Gallon. There was heavy debate about who was the better champion, but time will tell who that superior champion is. And oh boy, where is Gallon now?
Does anyone know where Gallon is? He's been missing since 2024. No, because he's been kidnapped and is being held in Serpent's basement.
So Serpent is not just a terrorist, he's also a kidnapper. But anyway, Hulkling has also had his fair share of terrorising the innocent summoners of the contest on defence, and that is actually where we're going to start, with his defensive potential. I made notes. So Hulkling is not only beyond ridiculous as an attacker, but also has defensive potential. He gains shape-shifting charges that are consumed to gain buffs when certain actions are done. One of these is an indestructible buff that becomes a longer lasting passive when nullified.
That should be illegal.
It really disrupts the flow of the fight. It gets in the way of a lot of champions' damage loops. If you have a very hard hitting special attack incoming, he can just absorb that with his indestructible. Gets in the way, stalls you. The other is a regen buff that regenerates depending on the amount of damage dealt from the hit. So, if you line up that absolutely enormous special attack and you so happen to avoid his indestructible, you might just have it all regen back anyway. If he strikes your block, he gains a pierce buff, basically meaning you better find a way to fight this guy without parrying or you are cooked. And now, yeah, plenty of Mystic champions exist that can delete this man from the server, but back in the days of nodes like Rich Get Richer, this man was absolutely terrifying. Not to mention his party trick of being the single most insane attacker to ever exist in Battlegrounds history. From Battlegrounds conception up until literally today, when I received a screenshot of Hulkling nuking a 7-star photon and 49,000 points. Hulkling has dominated most metas, and he's been synonymous with Battlegrounds throughout the 2.5 years of his existence. His incredible ability to turn most opponents into mincemeat in less than 30 seconds literally had us worried for the welfare of the Cosmic class for the majority of last year. Because 7 stars have been overtaking the meta, obviously, but in the Cosmic class it looked as if they were relying a little bit too much on this man and his absolutely broken abilities. So I thought, well hell, the Cosmic class is getting left behind. Now we have 7-star Deathless Thanos and Hulkling to take care of efforts. But wow, Hulkling single-handedly had me worried for Cosmic. that they were going to be too dependent on him as a 6-star, because there ain't no way this man is coming out as a 7-star. He is just too damn versatile. I said he was simple at the beginning, as if that was a bad thing, when in reality, it's what makes him so beautiful. The fact that he can gain power every time he gains one of his buffs is just ridiculous. It opens up so many new ways to play this guy. You can just minimize the number of hits you deal to the opponent, gaining the power, gaining the pierce, before launching this unstoppable burst of damage, which is really helped by the existence of relics that you can extend your Fury bonus combo and just delete opponents. This champion is beyond beautifully designed, and if we get anything close to him as a 7-star champion, then we should consider ourselves lucky, because we are standing in the presence of a great. And I say this as a closeted Kate Bishop simp. Actually, not particularly closeted, I'm just a Kate Bishop simp. He is the single greatest Battlegrounds attacker to have ever existed. And yet, he is only number 2. Of all of these champions, there could only be one. There could only be one GOAT of Battlegrounds. Who will be remembered as the best the world has ever seen? Which champion leaves Barrowman slightly uncomfortable every time he gets to draft them? It is, of course, it's Domino. I can't be asked to record any more footage. I'm so tired.
Deal with it!
Of course it's Domino. Like, I feel, actually, that that's quite a safe bet. As far as I'm concerned, there isn't much debate here. The rest of the list, okay, I'm resigned to getting shouted at. But here, I will not accept criticism. I will not have it. So Domino, she is the GOAT. Serpent is but a student to Domino. He may be the reigning world champion of pissing people off now, but he must have got it from somewhere. Have you ever thought about that? Serpent attended the school of complete bastards when Domino was the head professor. You know, he must have learned it from somewhere. Imagine that class. Serpent walks in with his little school shoes on and his little backpack, and he sits down and he says, "Professor, I want to be the biggest bastard the world has ever seen when I grow up." And she looks over at him and says, "I will support you in whatever you want to be." And she taught him everything she knew about making summoners want to kill themselves. Seaton articulated the people's anger towards Domino perfectly several years ago, so I'm just going to quote him here, because no one could ever put this better. Stuff doesn't happen, and then you just take damage. Yeah, that's the bullshit we have to deal with every time Domino shows up on the screen. And yes, I know Domino counters exist, and even more have been introduced since the moment Battlegrounds were introduced, but even with a counter, shit can still blow up. We've all been in that match where you go in with a Shuri, with a Red Skull, and you still end up dying horribly, and she crits 100 billion times, and she evades, and she turns something off, and you come out with 10,000 points, and you just want to throw your phone out the window. We've all been there. And even if you, say you don't go on with a counter, you have a better chance of being on the next moon landing than coming out with a decent score. And, okay, I could go all day, but what about Domino on attack? You saw the numbers she was putting out. When things go just that little bit your way, she can be one of the best counters to Nick Fury, Rintra, Korg, all very effective matchups for her if she gets just that little bit lucky. And look, even if she had negative damage, she would still feature on this list, because she is the most notorious defender in MCOC history.
You know what that word means, huh? Notorious? It means Domino.
There has never been a single meta where she has not been a completely unfair defender. There may have been some where she's been slowed down offensively, but there has not been a single one where she's been turned off defensively. Nothing Kabam has yet to come up with can stop her defensively. That is why she is number 1. She is famous. She is infamous. She is ridiculous, broken. She's the best. She's the GOAT. She is the most recognizable, the most iconic champion to ever feature in a Battlegrounds match. Domino. We kinda hate you, but we also love you, really. And thank Christ, this is over. It's been so long. It's been like 500 years since I've started recording this. Please don't tell my mother how long I've spent on this. Anyway, If you have made it this far, it's been a real marathon. Then thank you very much for watching. Get out of here.